Hey tubers, welcome back to Mike's Auto Garage. Tonight I'm just out kicking it in the garage. Got the dog out here with me. I wanted to introduce you guys to Project Seahorse. This is a 1956 30 horsepower Johnson that I picked up for $15. It was originally the electric start version. Is a tiller, so that's kind of nice, at least for what I want to use it for. So this thing, obviously based on the price, is a bit of a basket case. I was kind of baffled by a couple things on it. So let's start up here at the top first. So the hood, the paint on it is just absolutely terrible. I do have it down in my basement. It has been so destroyed by the sun, you can just take your nail and just scratch the paint clean off. So I took the recoil off. That seemed to be okay. It was sticky and basically froze when I got it. You'd pull the cord out and want to go back in, you'd have to wind it back in with your finger. But I got that freed up with a little bit of WD. So that's fine. I pulled the flywheel off, had a very difficult time getting that off. And the coils are just absolutely destroyed. I don't know if you guys can see in there, like that's part of the coil. All the laminations are just coming off of it. So it's going to need a full ignition system job. As we move down here, you guys can see this is like the proper Johnson red for this year. This here is probably off of like another 56 or 57, but it's Evinrude blue. Okay, and then if we move over here, now this is Johnson green, but I believe it to be like a 1955 Johnson green. So if we kind of take a look, right up in here, you can see the green. Focus, there we are. The green was sprayed over. So at some point, this motor had been swapped. So I believe it looks like they swapped the block, probably all of the internals. They kept the carburetor, replaced this assembly for some reason. This was electric start. Normally the electric start is right in this area. That's clearly gone. This bracket doesn't even hold the electric start. So this bracket is just for the rope start only model. So that's the best I can figure. For those of you who don't know, the 55 green motor is a 25 horse, and the red 56 is a 30 horse. So then we can obviously see I got the head pulled off of it. The head's off of it because one spark plug hole was mostly stripped, but like it was blown out as well. And then the bottom hole was mostly stripped, but had about one or two good threads on it. So before pulling the head, I did try to do a compression check. Top cylinder with the blown out hole got 90 pounds. Bottom cylinder with the good hole only made 37 pounds. The reason the top cylinder was able to make 90 pounds is because the O-ring on the compression tester took up the extra voids and was able to get a good seal. Bottom cylinder only made 37 pounds, I think due to having a blown head gasket. Once I pulled it off, there was a big tear. It was right down the bottom of the cylinder, right next to that water cooling jacket. And I think that's probably why. These coil wires look quite crusty, so those are going to need to get replaced as well. Now if we move down a little lower, you can see things like the shift knob are just pretty beat on it. It does have this bracket to hook it up to this style control steering. It does have, I forget what they call that bracket for doing remote throttle. Of course, it shows the double line fuel connector, and I don't think there's anything too notable over here. The castings broke right here next to the tiller. That's not really an issue, it's just more cosmetics. The tiller, ooh, you guys can't see those gears at all, can you? Let's see. Alright, that's a little better. But when you go to move this, these gears are just completely stripped right down to nothing. And I believe I saw in a forum at some point, or saw somewhere, that if you hooked it up to controls and you left the tiller arm on it, you would strip the gears out like that. It was just not made for that. And then as we go down the motor a little lower, we can see this turnbuckle is just completely missing the part for the handle. This one is still here, but the tip is broken off, so it's mostly there. So that's, that's just something else. It's not an immediate problem, but it does need to be fixed. The paint all over the middle section of the motor is just atrocious. I don't know what's going on in the bottom here with this yellowish greenish color. I'm thinking it's maybe some kind of algae or something. And then we get down into the gear case. So as you guys can see by the puddle on the floor, this is only half the puddle. I found it with no oil in the gear case, which I found kind of alarming. And so I filled it with 1 quart of oil, which didn't actually fill it. But I put 1 quart in, and it looked like it was leaking out of the fill screws. Those take like a little felt washer, and that's probably leaking. So I was like, oh, no worries, I'll lay it down in my basement. So I laid it down, and then it was leaking out the prop shaft. So that really kind of explains why the gear case has no lube in it whatsoever. And if we take a look at the prop, that's the next sore point on this motor. It's, well, let's just say it has seen some better days. Yeah. I don't even know how you can do this much damage without like shearing the drive pin just clean off, or just shearing the whole prop off. I just don't know. So, needless to say, this is going to be a fun project. It's going to definitely be a long-term project because it needs everything. I'm sure the carb needs to be completely gone through as well. So it's going to get a full fuel system, full ignition system. I was able to repair the head. For those of you who don't know, I do work at a machine shop. So I was able to turn a custom insert on the bottom cylinder. I was going to use a key insert in that. Or no, excuse me, that's the top cylinder. Yeah, I was going to use a key insert. I was looking at McMaster car, and I accidentally looked at the wrong key insert. So by the time I drilled and tapped the head, excuse me, I was on to the wrong size and thread at that point. So I had to order up some aluminum and do my own, which turned out pretty well. It's about the same as the factory. But you guys can see, if we compare the bottom cylinder, how they cast that extra ridge in there. That ridge is completely gone. I had to drill it out quite a bit larger. So the other cylinder, this one still had like the half a thread in there. It's on the bottom. So that I just went to, I think my local Farm and Fleet. I got one of those cheap little repair kits so you can retap your own head. And just retap it. And you can maybe see in there's a little gap between the spark plug and the head. That's where that thin little insert they give you is in there. So got a lot of work ahead of us, guys, but be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future videos.